Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week, you want thingamabobs? I got 20. I am discussing The Little Mermaid. This was released back in 1989. It is Disney's 28th animated feature film, and it is the movie that kicked off the Disney Renaissance era, which was from 89 to 1999. And this is an absolute iconic film, one of my all-time favorites. I would watch it so much throughout my childhood. Such fond memories of this movie. Watching it now, I got emotional because it's a lovely film. And it is based on the fairy tale of the same name by Hans Christian Andersen. And I remember when I was a teenager, when I was a teenager, my older cousin telling me about the original Little Mermaid. And I was so, disturbed yet fascinated by the actual tale. And it's obviously very dark and really depressing, frankly. And you may already be familiar with it, so I don't really want to get into it too much. But if you're curious, you can look up the original. You can probably read the original online somewhere. I never actually read it, but I just remember the details of it, of my cousin explaining it to me. That just stuck with me, and it was so chilling yet interesting. But absolutely just a wonderful Disney movie with a phenomenal soundtrack. You love the songs. Growing up, that's the thing that sticks with you the most. Those songs, that's the parts in all of these Disney movies that we've seen the most times. And of course, Jodie Benson, who plays Ariel, her voice is absolutely beautiful. What's wonderful, too, is that she says to this day, she sings Part of Your World on most weekends, she says, and that she loves singing it every single time. So that's so beautiful to me, that this song that is so huge and such an important part of this film, that it's holds such a special place in her heart, and that she never gets tired of singing it. So I really love that. And what's interesting that I just learned recently is that apparently a Disney executive at the time wanted to cut Part of Your World from the movie, which is insane to me hearing that. But the reason was that because when they were doing test screenings, that kids weren't paying attention, that they were getting kind of fussy and just bored, I guess, like little kids. But then Howard Ashman, the late Howard Ashman, who was the lyricist, he wrote all the lyrics for these songs, and of course the composer, Alan Menken. They worked on many Disney films together before, sadly, Howard Ashman passed away. The last one they worked on was Beauty and the Beast. But he is the one who fought for the song to be in the movie. And the reason for it was that he said that if you take this song out of the film, then audiences will not fall in love with Ariel, because it is, of course, her I Want song. And I will say that of all the Disney songs, Part of Your World is my all-time favorite, because there's just so much emotion in there, and it's obviously sung beautifully, and I just really love it. And I'm sure probably the thing I've seen the most in this film, just that song, because I also had a sing-along tape, and that was one of the songs on there, so then with the lyrics that would pop up on screen. But then, so with that song, that's why, watching it now, I realize that's why I guess they added a little bit of humor in there with Sebastian, when he gets scared of his reflection and things like that. But it's an obviously gorgeous song, and it's just really cool to see how Ariel is so entranced by the human world, that she's this mermaid living in the ocean, but she dreams of this bigger life for herself. And she's just fascinated by anything related to humans. Like when she finds the fork and she doesn't know what it is. And then when they go to Scuttle, the seagull, and he tells them it's a dingle hopper. Like it's a comb. It's just really funny. And of course, I absolutely love Sebastian. He's amazing. And that he's basically torn, though, because torn between his loyalty to King Triton and then to Ariel, and all of his remarks about teenagers. You give them an inch, they swim all over you. And then King Triton, of course, the fact that he's so overprotective of Ariel specifically, even though he's got his 7 daughters, and he clearly favors Ariel, his youngest daughter. And then when they're doing that concert, and then the great reveal, our sister Ari. And then apparently that was something they decided to have the audience, like, the first reveal that Ariel wasn't there. And what's funny is that as a kid, when she goes off to that little cave thing where she has all of her human collectibles, all from things she's found, when she adds the little fork, the dingle hopper, to her collection. What's funny is that as a kid, I always thought that that was her room. I didn't realize that it was like a hideaway for all of her collectibles. But I just can keep gushing about how much I love Part of Your World, because it's about just this girl dreaming about a bigger life for herself and her fascination with our world. I want to be where the people are. I want to see them dancing, walking around on those, what do you call them? Oh, feet. I just love the song so much. And there is a great video that you can find on YouTube of Jodie Benson recording the song back in 1989. And then you can see her also talking with Howard Ashman, voice directing her, basically saying that it's much smaller. So I just really love that song. It's beautiful. Love it so much. I'll just keep saying that. It's a beautiful song. And then, of course, when she sees Eric for the first time, the classic love at first sight moment in many Disney films. I love Max, too. He's so adorable. Eric's doggy. He's so cute, Max. And he just goes up to Ariel. It's so cute. And then, of course, the villain in the movie, Ursula, played by Pat Carroll. Definitely an iconic villain. Not my favorite Disney villain. My favorite, as I've mentioned, is Scar. And my favorite Disney film, as I've mentioned, too, is Aladdin. Just another note. But Ursula just using Ariel's love for Eric to her own advantage, for her own personal gain, to get back at Triton, because she had apparently lived in the palace at one point, the kingdom, whatever, Atlantica they call it. I never realized that, actually. I know there's whole backstory with Ursula that apparently she's supposed to be King Triton's sister at some point. I don't know. I wasn't sure if that was a legitimate thing or if that was just some kind of internet thing. And her 2 eel henchmen, Flotsam and Jetsam, they're kind of forgettable henchmen. In terms of villain sidekicks, there's nothing really defining about them, besides their glowing eyes, I guess. But nothing really defining characteristics, nothing funny like them. I mean, you look at Iago, he's fantastic. Best villain sidekick, hands down. But, of course, obviously, another fan favorite for sure, Under the Sea. And Sebastian, truer words have never been spoken, when he says, Ariel, listen to me, the human world, it's a mess. I mean, that was 30 years ago, and here we are now in 2019, and that's certainly true to this day. But those songs where the protagonist is just kind of reacting to the song, those are always fun, because, say, for instance, in Aladdin with Friends Like Me, when the genie's singing to him, or in Beauty and the Beast, when Lumiere is singing to Belle, Be Our Guest, all those songs. But this one's just so fun and jovial, all the sea creatures jamming out. It's just, love that song. The human world, it's a mess. Life under the sea is better than anything they got up there. The seaweed is always greener in somebody else's lake. You dream about going up there, but that is a big mistake. Just look at the world around you, right here on the ocean floor. Such wonderful things around you. What more is you looking for under the sea? Love it, love it. So much fun. Just smiling. But I was just smiling watching all the songs, and of course singing along. You gotta sing along. They're such classics. They're such fun songs. And Ariel just doesn't have any interest, though, at all. Even before when she's doing her little, he loves me not, he loves me. Gosh, with picking the flower petals. And then when Flounder has that gift for her, that statue of Eric. And she's just so hopelessly in love with her humming and daydreaming, and King Triton thinks she loves a merman, but then when he finds out it's a human. So with King Triton, the whole thing is that he has his prejudice against humans. And I wonder if there is some sort of backstory there, because why does he have such prejudice against humans? It would have been interesting to see some kind of reason behind it, that maybe it's just something that happened that made him feel that way, that all humans are awful. Actually, now that I think about it, King Triton doesn't need more of a reason to hate humans other than the obvious reasons, that we pollute the ocean and that we kill and eat fish. He even says himself, they're barbarians, so that's just the obvious reason he would hate humans. But I will say that the part when he destroys all of her treasures and trinkets and he destroys the statue because he's thinking he's protecting her, but that whole part, it doesn't even break my heart. It full on hurts my heart, if that makes any sense. Which to me, it's just worse, but I hated that part as a kid. It's my least favorite part of the movie. And then when he immediately feels guilty, though, afterwards, you see it on his face, but then he leaves, and then she's crying, and Sebastian feels bad, but she's saying, just go away, and she's crying. It's just so upsetting. And it's more with her being so heartbroken. It's more like not just that he destroyed all of her stuff, which is horrible, but it's because he thinks he's protecting her from humans, from the human world, but it's more so that it's like that's her dream is crushed because her wanting to be a human, and then it's just so awful. And then, of course, Flotsam and Jetsam swooping in when she's at her most vulnerable and using her feelings for Prince Eric to lure her to talk to Ursula. But then when Ursula convinces her to sign that contract, then, of course, the classic, iconic Poor Unfortunate Souls. Oh, and a fun fact about Poor Unfortunate Souls is that originally there was going to be a song for Ursula titled Silence is Golden, and I remember hearing a demo of it. And it's not as unique of a message as Poor Unfortunate Souls. And she still has all that stuff about, body language, so definitely this was obviously the better choice that they went with. Ursula's so slimy and devious. And then obviously everything that's been said about this movie, you already know, like when Ariel signs the contract, and then people say, oh, well, why couldn't she just write to Eric explaining things? Then it's like, well, because this is the movie, that she gives up her voice. The thing that Ursula needs to really use against her to really get at Triton, since she's really using Ariel to get to King Triton to take all of his power. So really, Ariel only talks for about 2/3 of the movie, because then she doesn't have her voice. And then when it's cute when she's walking, it's like she's a toddler learning how to walk. And that whole part with Scuttle, it's like, oh, you look different. He's sitting on her leg. It's like, oh, new seashells? It's like, I can't put my foot on it. She's got legs, you idiot. Oh, and I gotta mention, with Part of Your World, I love the reprise as well, when she's singing to Prince Eric when she saves him. And it's just so beautiful, and I love it. What would I give to live where you are? What would I pay to stay here beside you? What would I do to see you smiling at me? And then I love when she's up on the rock and the wave crashes and her hair blowing. Such powerful imagery, so majestic, and knowing that something greater than herself, she just knows someday she will be part of our human world. I love that. And then obviously in movies in general, but especially in Disney movies, when the romance is just really quick. She's only got 3 days to get Prince Eric to fall in love with her, and he's got to kiss her. It has to be the kiss of true love, of course. But he's hung up on, he doesn't realize that it is Ariel, because he just was hung up on her voice, but then when he sees Ariel and he's saying, oh, you can't speak though, then I guess you're not the person who I thought. He doesn't realize, obviously. But then when they just spend the whole day together, and there's also that Les Poissons song with Chef Louis. That song, though, it doesn't add anything to the narrative whatsoever. I guess just adds more humor, and it also just shows basically the lengths that Sebastian goes through when this chef is trying to boil him. Oh, goodness. But that whole song, but Sebastian, too, wanting to do what's best for Ariel, and then when he was going to say, like, oh, I'm going to march down there to King Triton, and then when she's shaking her head, and she's looking all sad, and he said, then you'll just be miserable for the rest of your life. All right, I'll help you. Like, he gives in because he knows deep down that she wasn't happy being a mermaid, that this is what she wants. She wants to be a human. And also that reminds me, too, what people would say, criticizing this movie, that, oh, she signed away her voice just all for a man, like all that nonsense. And as other people have counter-argued, which is absolutely true, that it's more than the romance for her. She wanted this way before. This was just then she fell in love. And I know, yes, she's just a teenager or whatever. Everything, again, that's been argued about this movie has already been said. But the whole thing is that she wanted to be a human. It is cute, though, like her innocence. And then, like, when she's combing her hair with the fork again, she's so excited and they're looking at her. And then she just puts it down and then she sees Grimsby's pipe. Grimsby is an interesting character, too, because he's so concerned for Eric. And he's like, oh, we just want to see you be married and settle down. He's kind of like a father figure to Eric. And then when she takes Grimsby's pipe, it's like, oh, you like it? And she just blows the smoke, thinking it's a Snorflat from Scuttle and all of his wise wisdom about the surface. And that great line, too. It's like, now let's eat before this crab wanders off my plate. Sebastian on his plate. And it's cute too when Ariel just falls asleep in the plush bed, and then Sebastian just curls up on the pillow and he's like, oh child, you're hopeless. But he's helping her out, and then of course the beautiful song Kiss the Girl. Such a great song. Sha-la-la-la-la-la, my oh my, looks like the boy too shy, ain't gonna kiss the girl. I love it. With the frogs and just all the animals helping him out. And the fish, and with Flounder, and then the fireflies glowing, it's beautiful. And then when they're almost about to kiss, and then Flotsam and Jetsam turn the boat over. It's cute too with the land and sea creatures working together. And that reminds me too of another little detail I just noticed, because I've said this before, anytime I've seen a movie so many times, I like when I notice new details here and there that I never noticed before. So one that I noticed was right at the beginning of the movie when you see the dolphins and that seagull chatting it up, like you see land and sea creatures interacting. That's just cute to me. Oh, also another character I want to mention, I love that little seahorse character that we see at the beginning when he introduces Sebastian. Ignatius, Crustaceus, Sebastian. He's so cute, that little seahorse. He doesn't have a name, though, but he's so adorable with his little high-pitched voice. Then he shows up later when he's telling Sebastian that the king wants to see him. So he's a cute little character. And then, of course, when Ursula uses Ariel's voice to become Vanessa, and she hypnotizes Eric. And then, of course, because things happen so quickly, we've got to be married before sundown. And then that part when the ship takes off, the wedding ship, because they're going to get married, and then when Ariel is sitting there on the dock, and then she lifts her head and her eyes are shining with tears, that gets me every time, and a tear falls into the water, and Flounder's all sad, and then it's just really touching and heartbreaking, because she's going to lose everything, losing Eric, and then since following through with Ursula's contract that if she can't get Eric to kiss her by the sunset, then she belongs to Ursula. And then when Scuttle sees Vanessa, and it's just with Ariel's voice, and then he sees, oh, the sea witch, and then when he goes to Ariel to tell her everything, it's like, have I ever been wrong? I mean, about the important stuff, like what's important. So it's nice that they're all working together to help Ariel, all of the animals, and then Max too. And then when Ursula's seashell breaks and Ariel gets her voice back, and it breaks Eric out of the spell, and then she has her voice and she's like, Eric, I wanted to tell you, and they're about to kiss, and then she turns back into a mermaid because the sun sets. Then King Triton tries to destroy the contract, but she's saying, oh, no, not even you can destroy it. And then she's like, well, I'm always a woman for a bargain. So then, of course, what she wanted all along, to take King Triton's power. And he doesn't even think twice. Of course, he makes that sacrifice for Ariel. And it's sad, though. And then Eric trying to save Ariel. And the whole fight sequence, whatever, that's kind of stuff always kind of takes me out of any movie. Even in Aladdin, too, my all-time favorite Disney movie, the whole thing with the, last showdown with the antagonist of any Disney film, then in that one with Jafar when he's a snake, and it's like, all right, just whatever, get to the resolution. So then when Eric stabs her with the broken ship, killing her, and also when she accidentally kills her little poopsies, Flotsam and Jetsam, and then all of those mermaids are free at last. And then it's touching, too, the ending of the film when Ariel, again, is just staring longingly at Eric, and King Triton says, she really does love him, doesn't she, Sebastian? And he says that it's going to be difficult, how much he's going to miss her. And then he turns her into a human. And then when she emerges in that blue, sparkly dress, beautiful, and they kiss, and they get married, hopefully sometime later, because she is still just 16, but of course, just such a happy, beautiful ending. And then it's just so touching, too, when she says goodbye to Flounder and Scuttle. It's just cute, too. I liked that part, too, in Scuttle, when Ariel had rescued Eric, and then that Scuttle at one point, she's like, is he dead? And then when he's listening to, he picks up his foot, and he's like, oh, I can't make out a heartbeat. But Chef Louis again trying to kill Sebastian. I mean, he's got the knife, and then Sebastian literally knocks his teeth out. Good. I really do love Sebastian. He just wants to compose his symphonies. He's just great, though. Ultimately, everyone, and King Triton in particular, are doing what's best for Ariel. That this is what makes her truly happy. So really, you could argue that King Triton has the most growth in this movie, because he sees Ariel truly happy, and he lets her go. And then it's just so touching, though, when he uses the wave in the water, and then they hug, and then she says, I love you, Daddy, and her eyes are shining again with tears. So touching, and Prince Eric bows to King Triton, and Ariel's sisters, they're all waving goodbye. It's just beautiful. Lovely movie. I always loved it as a kid, still love it. Never fails to make me tear up, and yet always put a smile on my face, like pretty much any Disney movie. I do remember the sequel, too. I haven't seen the sequel in a long time, but I used to watch that, too. And it's similar plot-wise to this movie. And then, obviously, it's with Ariel and Eric's daughter, Melody. And then the irony that she wants to be a mermaid. And then it's with Ursula's sister and all of that. And obviously, sequels, nothing like the original. And yeah, we in luck here, down in the muck here, under the sea. And with that, that is going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. You can follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at Storytelling Saga, as well as on Twitter at Storytell Saga. You can also send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by leaving me a message in the contact section of storytellingsaga.com, or by sending me an email at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Next week, I think your heart is more pure than you know. I will be discussing Hey Arnold, the Jungle Movie. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.